Which is the best way to deadlift for over 40s? We're going to talk about that one exercise, the deadlift. We're going to use 3 different bits of equipment, and what we're going to do is talk about the advantages of when to use it and how to use that equipment. Part 1, we're going to be looking at kettlebells. Kettlebells are probably the best place to start when it comes to deadlifting. We can manage how much weight we use, because another thing that I mention with regards to building strength is not to throw ourselves in the deep end and do what is traditional strength training, which is heavy weight training. What we need to do is we need to condition the body, and we need to build capacity within the body potentially with lighter weights. If you want to know more stuff like that, hit the link in the description or go through to my newsletter where I share more information about strength training as we get older, but not only the strength training, but how we get into it. So what are the advantages of using kettlebells? Well, the first thing is that the handles are off the floor. So we don't have to go down quite as high. So we come into this position. So we've got, similar to a hex bar and a deadlift, we've got the weights up a little bit higher so we can manage the range of movement. So if I can't hinge at the hip and get down there, what I can do is I've got the handles a little bit further up where I can get down to. Now, if I can only get down this far and I still can't reach them, the best thing to do is to lift the weights up off the floor and develop the hip range of movement to be able to get down further. What you see a lot of people do is when they do it, they go down into position, they can't get down there, so they flex their back to do it. That eventually is going to turn into a problem. So what we need to be able to do, as I mentioned, when we need to build into strength training, we need to get the range of movement. And because we can manage the weight of the kettlebells, because these 2 kettlebells are 16, you can go lighter if you need to. What you can do is you can manage that. So you can lift the lighter weights. If you need to lift them up off the floor, then you can start there. You can build up the weight and work your way down to the floor as well. So that's one of the big advantages of kettlebells, is the fact that you can manage the weight that you use a lot more easily, and you can lift the weight up off the floor and you can still stand over them. What the standing over them does is it reduces the lever. If I try and come into that position and then lift, it's going to be very difficult because the lever's that much longer. But if I can stand right over them, then I can lift them up a lot more easily, because then I don't have the lever. I've taken that away because I'm able to stand over them. So they're much more adaptable in how we can lift. We can shorten and lengthen levers accordingly. We can drop and raise weight accordingly, and we can drop and raise the weight accordingly to our range of movement, which then gives us time to build the capacity to be able to do more. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm lifting 2 up, but if necessary, I can just have 1. If I need to make it lighter, that's 16 kilos. So I can now make it lighter again, and I can build that capacity to go from 16 to 20 kilos to 24 kilos to 28 kilos, and then up to 32 kilos, sorry, when I use 2. Why would I use 2? It builds upper body strength because I've got to hold obviously 1 in each hand on its own, and they're independent of each other. So that makes the kettlebell that much better and more adaptable to the mechanics of our body. Deadlift number 2 is the more traditional one with the barbell. Now, the barbell, it's a little bit higher up off the ground. So again, that has an advantage, because again, I don't have to go down quite as far. The only problem with that is obviously you can see the size of the thing. It's going to be a little bit harder to get it up off the floor, because we need different equipment for that. Because we need one piece of equipment there and another piece of equipment there, and we need them to be the same height. Your gym may have risers which you can do that, which is absolutely fine, but a lot of places may not have something to sort of lift it up. So we've got the barbell, as I mentioned. The advantage is that it's a little bit higher than the kettlebells there, so the handles are a little bit higher, so it allows me to get down into position and lift up. Now, again, another advantage is if you're using bumper plates, because bumper plates, albeit these are just 10 kilos, but the 20 kilos looks exactly the same. It's just a little bit heavier, or it's double the weight. 25 kilo plate. Again, it will be the same size, but it will just be heavier. So with bumper plates, again, all of them are the same size, so you can manage the weight that you're using. So when you go down into position, you can maintain the proper posture, you can place it down as you need to. Now, that becomes a disadvantage because of the bar. So the bar, when we were talking about the lever, I can't stand over the bar. I have to stand behind the bar. So there's always going to be, albeit very small, but there's always going to be a lever which is going to make it a little bit harder. Now, there is nothing wrong with starting light here and then building up and then getting used to it. But some people do find the lever of the barbell a problem. Not a huge problem, but it can be an issue, certainly as the weight starts to increase. Because when it comes to strength training, we want to be doing heavy weights. So we need to make those heavy weights as safe as we can, so we're at less risk of causing ourselves a problem. We're never going to prevent the problems, but we can minimize any risk. So with regards to the barbell, we've got the advantage of it being up a little bit higher, but we've got the disadvantage of there always being a lever there because I can't stand over it like I can stand over it with the kettlebells. The other disadvantage is it's much harder to lift up, but as I mentioned, it is a little bit higher than the kettlebells. So it does give us that. So when we're building, we can still manage the weight. This barbell is 20 kilos. These are 10 kilos, so that's 40 altogether. I can go down as far as 5 or 2.5. So it could be 25 or it could be 30 as well. So we can manage the weight, but obviously it doesn't go as light as the kettlebells. So you can start to see there are advantages and disadvantages to all these different bits of equipment, and we would use them at different times and for different reasons. So this would be a little bit more advanced because we've got the disadvantage of the lever, but we've got the advantage of being able to put more weight on it. So equipment number 2 is the deadlift. Again, if you've got any questions about what I've talked about, hit them up in the comment section. If you want to watch more like this, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon, and also get down in the link to the newsletter where I share more information like this. In part 3, we're going to talk about the hex bar. Equipment number 3 is the hex bar, and you can see it's a hex bar because it's a hexagonal shape. So, advantages of the hex bar. Because of this shape that it is, if I turn that side on, or in fact, if I go here, you'll be able to see that's the height of the barbell. So that's the height of the handle of the barbell. So we've got an extra couple of inches. So an advantage of this is that the handles are up higher. So what that means is when I do the movement, I don't have to go down as far. So I'm not required to have as much range of movement of the hip when I pick the weight up off the floor. So that it's even higher than the kettlebells. So I would have to lift those kettlebells up quite high to get them to the height of this. So that's one of the advantages of the hex bar, is the fact that it's higher up and that I don't need the hip flexion to get down into position. The second advantage is I can lose the lever, because like the kettlebells, where I can stand over them, to reduce the lever is I need my hands by my body. So with the kettlebells, they obviously come inside my legs, but they're alongside my body. I can do the same because of the handles. Because the handles are on the side, I can have my hands next to my body. So the lever is reduced. That allows me to then lift more weight because the lever is less. And the final thing is that we're able, when we don't go down into as much hip flexion, so the lower down we go, let's just say the less weight we can lift. When we're up high, when we're here, we can lift more weight through that short range of movement than we can through this short range of movement. So when I go down to a barbell, I won't be able to lift as much weight as this. So my total weight lifted, I'll be able to do more on this hex bar than I will be on a barbell. The only disadvantage, when we're starting, we have to get again to a minimum level, just like the barbell, because this hex bar is 25 kilos this time. So it's a little bit heavier. So we have to get our body up to a point to be able to start lifting on here, which is why we would start with kettlebells. So we start with the kettlebells and we build ourselves up. We get ourselves to a point where I can lift this up. So again, I've got my 2 10s and the bar is 25 kilos. So that's 45 kilos to start with. So again, as a minimum, I would probably say 45 kilos, but you could, again, if it's bumper plates, you could have 30 kilos, or if you've got 2.5s, it could be 30 kilos. Sorry, 35 kilos and 30 kilos. So we have to, again, have that as a minimum standard when we're doing deadlifting with the hex bar. Now, the other advantage with the barbell that I didn't mention is that's more likely to be in a gym. A gym may not have one of these because they are a slightly more, not necessarily specialist, but they're just a slightly more unique piece of kit. So a gym may not have that. So that would be a disadvantage, is the fact that it's just not out there as much. And a barbell is a lot more well known and well used within gyms. So they are just out there. So you can start to see you've got advantages and disadvantages. If you've liked anything, if you've liked the content, hit the like button. If you've got any questions about the hex bar, what weights to start on, what reps to do, where you need to be starting from, hit that down in the comment section below. Hit the link in the description, go through to my newsletter where I'll answer more of those questions through the newsletter anyway, but do still hit them down in the comments. And then finally, if you want to watch more of this, hit the subscribe button.